Drake, we've seen people talk about, and we've heard the College Football Playoff Committee talk about not punishing teams that go to a conference championship.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you buy that if you're not in the SEC or the Big Ten?
I need to buy it more when Kentucky can beat Ole Miss, okay, and then Ole Miss can beat Georgia. There is a false narrative across the country that the Big 12 is the only league that's eating itself alive. We have an undefeated team in BYU, and we have Colorado who's playing at the top of college football right now. Sure, the rest of the conference might be cannibalizing itself, but there are still elite teams at the top of this league that are winning at a high rate. The SEC has seen that to an extent, but they don't have any undefeated teams left. You go over to the Big Ten, and they've got Oregon, but past that, teams are losing over there. I mean, we still have an undefeated representative, and BYU fans don't want to hear this, but if you're Brett Yormark, you're begging the Cougars to lose the conference championship game. Why? That's the only way the Big 12 gets two college football playoff teams in. So if Colorado plays in the Big 12 title, they win. They finish 11-2. BYU finishes 12-1, 11-2. That's two teams in, one the conference champion, the other an at-large bid. Though if BYU wins in Arlington, Colorado's at 3 losses, you're only getting one team in. So while we talk about how do you value the conference championship, and if you lose, do you get docked? That will be the case if BYU wins the whole thing.
Yeah. What I think is going to be that interesting litmus test for the committee is they're saying all the right things, but when the rubber really meets the road,
right,
and then they start to play with these games of, oh, well, who did they beat and what happened here?
Yeah.
And that's going to be tough for them if SMU wins, right? If BYU has a win. But, man, when we get down to it, if it's Alabama sitting there at 10-2, or if it's Georgia sitting there at 10-2, and you've got a 12-1 non-conference champion BYU, I'm not telling you that I wouldn't take BYU.
Right.
Again, look at the football over my shoulder. I am going to side with the non-SEC team here.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I trust the committee just yet. Now, again, and I feel the same way over in the ACC. Now, I know Miami slipped up, but should Miami lose another one and be 11-2 with Cam Ward, a kind of a Heisman? I don't know that they get in over a 10-2 SEC team. And so, I do think now the Big Ten champion, or the loser of the Big Ten is going to be Ohio State or Oregon. The loser of the SEC is going to be a very highly ranked team. I would think they're in, but I'm not convinced that the committee is going to do the right thing with BYU, Miami, SMU, whoever that ends up being. But I guess we'll see. What do you think about BYU? They have flirted with just absolute death the last couple of weeks, or the last several. They've played down, I feel like, at times, or maybe they're just finding ways to win games. I'm not trying to dog BYU at this point, but man, at home they're a 3-point favorite against Kansas, and Kansas, we've talked about, is playing really good ball right now that they weren't playing earlier. But essentially, just saying that the undefeated Big 12 leader right now is a coin flip on a neutral field against Kansas. What are your thoughts on BYU right now? What if you could make risk-free profits in sports betting? Now, this may sound too good to be true, but let me explain. The sports betting market in the U.S. is so fragmented, with each sportsbook setting their own odds. This means that there are many opportunities to profit when two books get out of sync. You can bet on both sides. You can bet over on one book and under on another and lock in a risk-free profit. This strategy is called arbitrage, and it's the core of OddsJam. OddsJam scans hundreds of sports books in real time to find these bets, helping thousands of bettors earn tens of thousands of dollars every single month. Look at the results yourself. And here's the best part. You can try it for free. OddsJam offers a 7-day risk-free trial, giving you access to all of its data-driven tools, including the arbitrage and positive EV finder. If you don't love it, cancel with one click, no strings attached. Are you ready to bet smarter? Use promo code CFA for College Football Addiction to get 35% off your first month after the trial. Don't miss out on making smarter, risk-free bets with OddsJam today.
Yeah, just to tie up the College Football Playoff Committee point you make there, TJ, Tennessee at 8-1 with a loss to Arkansas, ranked above BYU. Now, would Tennessee win in a head-to-head matchup? I guess that's the case the committee is making. You see Notre Dame right there behind them. Indiana, who has not played a single bowl team yet, is still ranked above BYU. So we see the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't love the Cougars as much as many people do. And granted, you alluded to it. It's a phrase that many BYU fans and pundits are using now. Team of Destiny. They were analytically double-digit favorites against Utah, analytically double-digit favorites against Oklahoma State. They struggled mightily in those two games, and I wouldn't say that BYU is playing its best football right now. Two of their last three have been shaky wins, that UCF game being the only one that's an outlier out of those three. And now going into this week, they are projected to win this game per College Football Insiders and the analytics 36-23. That's a 13-point win where they're only favored by Vegas standards by 3. And I'm still waiting for the perfect game from BYU. You could argue Kansas State was that game, but that middle 8 is where the Cougars actually won and dominated. Yeah. I'm waiting for the entire ball game, our entire 60 minutes, to say, all right, BYU didn't just stomp a team, but they controlled the game. And there is that side of the Cougars. They've got it in them, no doubt. That is possibly the one bright spot is, hey, BYU's got 3 weeks now before the postseason to put it all together. I'm buying BYU right now. Despite them underperforming where they should be from an efficiency standpoint, they're still winning games. It is the team of destiny. They've had 2 game-winning drives that were miraculous in the last couple of weeks, and with that, it's tough to pick against the Cougars when they just keep doing that winning thing.
Yeah, no matter how we pick apart or analyze or say this was ugly or, what, winning is winning, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's, unfortunately, that's some of what is maybe the issue with the committee. The BCS couldn't tell when an ugly game happened. Now, if you were a 30-point favorite and you won by 3, like it could measure that, but it couldn't tell like where you played ugly and won unimpressively or with a late comeback. And so, we've removed the importance of winning somewhat with our committees. Thoughts on how they match up this weekend against Kansas?
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this Kansas team. Honestly, TJ, they are playing at a very high level. You just saw it with their home win against Iowa State, where they specifically dominated the first half. And here's where things are going to get very dicey for BYU. Kansas is 6th in the country offensively on 3rd and 4th down. BYU defensively, 74th. For some reason, as good as this BYU defense is, they seem to fall apart on late downs. If that happens in Provo this weekend, Kansas is going to have a shot, and BYU might have to come up with some magic toward the end of the game as well. And we've seen the Kansas offense play at a much higher rate over the course of the last couple of weeks. For BYU, the defense is going to have to step up once again and go win this game. The biggest thing that BYU has going for it, though, is that home crowd. Lavelle Edwards Stadium, they call them the Vampire Cougs when they're at home playing a night game. It's a different level of BYU football. Even that Oklahoma State game, while they didn't dominate it, you saw late game magic that came from that home crowd being behind them. This will once again be a raucous environment, especially as good as Kansas has been the last couple of weeks. Gives the fans even more to root for, and BYU is an undefeated top 10 team. We've already heard murmurs of 1984 thrown back out there by fans that mostly weren't alive or don't remember 1984. They're excited to run that year back, their national championship campaign. And that alone, the home crowd alone, is going to give BYU a huge boost in this one. I think they win. I think they cover, but I see it being a 7 or 10-point game for the Cougars.
Yeah, they've kind of been what you mentioned, them kind of skating by teams and dramatic comebacks. Even the UCF game I thought was really, really entertaining. They've kind of been must-watch TV. And there's a lot of good stories in the Big 12. I think about Coach Prime. I think about BYU. We'll talk about Dillingham out there in Arizona State. There's a lot of really good stories. And but BYU is certainly, top, one of the better stories in all of college football. So, Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work, bud?
Yeah, at LO Big 12 on Twitter or at Drake C. Toll, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube every day with Locked On Big 12.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
Always.